She didn't call a press conference. She didn't post a statement. She didn't let her publicist craft the perfect, carefully worded response designed to protect her image while saying absolutely nothing of substance. Brianna Stewart, two-time WNBA champion, former MVP, the most decorated player in New York Liberty history, picked up her phone and quietly, privately, away from every camera and every microphone that has been pointed at this story all week, reached out to Sophie Cunningham and said something nobody expected her to say. She said she was sorry. And that single private moment, that quiet acknowledgement happening completely outside the media circus surrounding this incident, tells us more about where this situation actually stands than anything the viral footage has shown us. Because a 5-game suspension is sitting on Kathy Engelbert's desk right now, and Brianna Stewart is running out of time. To understand why that apology matters, you have to go back to Saturday afternoon at Barclays Center and look at exactly what happened with the kind of precision this moment demands. Because there are two versions of this story competing for credibility right now, and the truth lives somewhere in the uncomfortable space between them. Version 1 is what the viral footage shows. Not broadcast footage, not the polished, editorially managed television product. Raw smartphone footage, 17 rows up, no production decisions about what to show and what to quietly cut away from. Just a camera pointed at a basketball court, capturing something the mainstream broadcast completely glossed over. What that footage shows, frame by frame, in real time and slow motion, is genuinely difficult to explain away. Brianna Stewart's feet are moving. She is not stationary, which, under standard basketball rules, means she cannot legally initiate contact. Her body weight is projecting forward, towards Sophie Cunningham, rather than bracing against incoming contact. Her arm is extended away from her torso, maximizing the surface area of the elbow, rather than naturally protecting her body. And the contact that follows is direct, forceful, and lands clean in Cunningham's chest. Now here is the part that made the internet lose its mind completely. After the contact lands, Stewart immediately pivots to the nearest referee, with both hands raised in the most theatrical display of basketball innocence. Barclays Center has seen all preseason. The performance of accidental, the body language of someone who knows exactly what just happened and is getting ahead of it as fast as possible. Cunningham's response? She stood up straight. No theatrics, no hands in the air, no searching for a foul call. She absorbed it and went straight back to work. That contrast is where this entire story begins. According to sources close to Stewart's camp, none of what that footage appears to show actually reflects her intent. The contact was incidental. A routine basketball collision, the kind that happens dozens of times every professional game without anyone reaching for a suspension. The viral footage, Stewart claims, created a perception of deliberateness that has no connection to what was actually happening in her mind during that play. That is her argument. And it deserves to be taken seriously, not because the footage supports it, but because what she did immediately after tells a completely different and far more revealing story. Before the footage had fully exploded, before the suspension reports surfaced, before the national sports media had fully locked onto this as the defining preseason controversy of the 2025 season. Brianna Stewart privately reached out to Sophie Cunningham. No cameras, no publicist, no carefully managed statement. A direct, personal apology, acknowledging the collision and expressing that hurting or intimidating Cunningham was never her intention. Here is the problem with that apology for Stewart's own defense. You do not privately reach out to someone you collided with accidentally during a routine basketball play. You do not make that call quietly and urgently before the media storm fully lands if you genuinely believe nothing inappropriate happened. The private apology, sincere as it may be, is an implicit acknowledgement that something occurred that warranted acknowledgement. In professional sports disciplinary frameworks, intent matters, but it is not the whole picture. The WNBA evaluates physical plays on what the footage objectively shows, not exclusively on what the player claims they were thinking. A player can sincerely believe their contact was accidental, while the biomechanical evidence builds a completely different case. And that footage is not going anywhere. Before this incident, Sophie Cunningham was known inside basketball circles as one of the most physically imposing role players in the league. After this incident, the entire country knows exactly who she is. And the way she handled that elbow is precisely why. Cunningham did not build her professional identity around scoring. She did not build it around highlight plays or social media moments or the kind of individual performance metrics that generate all-star votes. She built it around physical toughness, competitive ferocity, and the specific brand of on-court presence that makes teammates feel protected and opponents feel genuinely uncomfortable every single possession. She is Caitlin Clark's enforcer. Not because Clark asked for protection, not because Clark cannot handle herself, but because Cunningham chose that identity deliberately, built it systematically, and executes it every night with a kind of commitment that earns respect from everyone in that locker room. When Stewart's elbow landed, Cunningham's response was not to collapse. It was not to perform injury for the referee or seek sympathy from the crowd. It was to stand up straighter and play harder. That response, in the immediate aftermath of taking a forearm to the chest from a former MVP, tells you everything about who Sophie Cunningham actually is. And it creates an enormous complication for how we evaluate Stewart's apology, because Stewart did not apologize to someone who was broken by that contact. She apologized to someone who proved in real time that the contact did not break her. That distinction matters because it strips away any narrative where Cunningham is the fragile victim who needed protection. She never needed protection. She is the protection. And the league's disciplinary response to what happened to her sends a direct message about whether that role gets institutional backing or gets ignored. Kathy Engelbert is the person this entire story is now pointing toward. Every argument, every piece of footage, every private apology, every social media reaction eventually lands on her desk. And the decision she has to make, whether to uphold the reported 5-game suspension, reduce it, or lift it entirely based on Stewart's appeal, is one of the most consequential disciplinary calls of her tenure as commissioner. Her dilemma is not simple, and it does not have a clean answer. If she upholds the full 5 games, she establishes that preseason physical plays are subject to the same suspension standards as regular season incidents. That precedent reshapes how every team in the league approaches preseason competition going forward. It also sends a clear message that the footage is the footage, and stated intent does not override what the evidence objectively shows. If she reduces or lifts the suspension, she risks creating the perception that a former MVP received preferential treatment. She risks signaling to every team on Indiana's schedule that targeting Caitlin Clark and the players around her carries consequences the league is not fully prepared to enforce. And sitting underneath all of that is the commercial reality Engelbert cannot pretend does not exist. The WNBA is in the most visible moment in its history. Clark's second season is beginning. New television partnerships are active. Record attendance figures are being projected. The entire infrastructure of the league's growth depends on Clark staying healthy, staying available, and continuing to perform. Whatever Engelbert decides, it will be scrutinized by the largest audience the WNBA has ever had. She cannot afford to look soft. She cannot afford to look reactionary. And she has to make that call knowing both outcomes carry enormous consequences that extend far beyond one preseason elbow. Brianna Stewart is not appealing to Kathy Engelbert as a matter of principle. She is appealing because 5 games without her on the floor represents a genuinely severe competitive blow to a New York Liberty team built entirely around what she provides. Stewart is the offensive fulcrum of everything the Liberty do. She is the high post hub that generates ball movement against set defenses. She is the spacing threat that creates driving lanes for Sabrina Ionescu. She is the secondary playmaker who keeps the offense coherent when Ionescu is being trapped or doubled. She is the interior anchor that makes the Liberty's small ball lineups viable rather than exploitable. Without her, the structural problems compound immediately. Teams can collapse the paint against Ionescu because there is no credible perimeter threat occupying that high post space. They can switch everything on the perimeter because there is no hub action disrupting their defensive structure. They can dare the Liberty supporting cast to beat them from the outside and feel completely comfortable doing it. The Liberty without Brianna Stewart for 5 games are not simply a weaker version of themselves. They are a structurally compromised team, operating without the player who makes their entire offensive system mathematically functional. Meanwhile, the Indiana Fever would be operating at full strength. Cunningham, healthy and physical. Clark, locked in and dangerous. The most recognizable backcourt in the sport, running at maximum capacity while the Liberty's best player sits in street clothes. 5 games before the regular season has played a single meaningful minute. 5 games that could define early standings, early momentum, and early narrative around which team is actually built to compete for a championship in 2025. That is what is sitting on Engelbert's desk alongside the footage. When Stewart's representation walks into that appeal, they are carrying arguments of very different strengths. And being honest about which ones hold weight and which ones do not is essential to understanding how this actually resolves. The weakest argument is intent. The footage shows feet moving, weight projecting forward, arm extended, direct contact to the chest. No verbal explanation of what Stewart was thinking during that half-second neutralizes what the biomechanical evidence objectively documents. Disciplinary bodies in professional sports evaluate footage, not feelings. And this footage does not support an accidental contact narrative, regardless of how sincerely Stewart believes her own version. Slightly stronger is the private apology as a mitigating factor. Remorse and acknowledgement are typically weighted in disciplinary proceedings. The fact that Stewart reached out quickly, quietly, and directly to Cunningham before the full force of the media storm landed demonstrates an awareness that something warranted acknowledgement. That may not reduce 5 games to 0, but it could realistically influence whether 5 games becomes 3. The strongest argument by a significant margin is precedent comparison. If Stewart's legal team can identify comparable physical plays from recent WNBA history that resulted in fines rather than suspensions, or suspensions of 1 or 2 games rather than 5, they build a legitimate due process argument that Engelbert has to directly engage with. Disciplinary consistency is a foundational requirement of any credible league governance structure. If the punishment does not fit the established pattern, the appeal has genuine legal footing. That precedent argument is the one Engelbert loses sleep over, because if it holds up, she either reduces the suspension and faces the optics of going soft, or she upholds it and opens the league to a formal grievance that could drag this story out for weeks. Here is what this story is actually about, underneath all the footage and the appeals and the private apologies. The WNBA is in the middle of the most consequential season in its history, and it has not played a single regular season game yet. The decisions being made right now, in commissioners' offices and appeal hearings and quiet player-to-player phone calls, are setting the tone for everything that follows. Whether physical play gets governed consistently, whether enforcers get institutional backing, whether the league's disciplinary framework holds up under the pressure of its own unprecedented spotlight, Brianna Stewart threw an elbow. Sophie Cunningham absorbed it and kept working. Kathy Engelbert now has to decide what that moment means. And whatever she decides, the 2025 WNBA season just told us something important about where this league actually stands. The real question is whether anyone in power is paying close enough attention to act on it. Stay locked with my channel Simply Explained for more WNBA updates.